Hey guys, Growing with Dev here, back with another one. I've been offline doing so many different things, and this is one of them, seedling starting. It's oftentimes that I step back and wonder, how does everything get the way it is? Like all these plants, they have to start somewhere, right? And oftentimes they start through growing seeds. And to start that process, to turn this speck of life to something substantial, whether or not it's a small plant like this, I call her Gracely, or a whole farm, it all starts somewhere. And in the greenhouse that we're standing in, this is where the magic happens. I'm going to show you guys a multi-step process to turn something as small as a seed into what could potentially be your future crops or even the start to your farm. And let's get into it. So primarily there's three components I like to use when making my seedling starting mix. What you want to do is create an environment for your seeds that is loose enough for the roots to break through while absorbent enough to retain all that water that you're going to be feeding them. You don't want it to drain out too quickly and dry out. So one, you'll need something like cocoa coir. So this is made from the husk of coconut material. It's a byproduct of the coconut industry. And this typically is pH neutral. It can hold enough water for your plants. And honestly, it just feels good. And then this is what we call perlite. This is a byproduct of the volcanic ash industry. It's what is going to be replicating that rocky material that will allow your plant's root systems to kind of just make their way through whatever medium that you make. It makes the medium fluffy enough and not so compact. Just imagine you having like a tough mound of dirt. You know, if you were to get that wet over and over and over, the root systems that your plants have is not going to be able to break through. They're very delicate root systems, so having something like perlite is going to make it enough where it's spread out and porous enough for it to break through. And the last component is, let's walk over here. And the last component that I like to use is some type of vegetable soil or, compost, honestly. This is not the best. This is something that we reuse, but this has enough fertility to get the roots started at least. And I don't like to waste anything. So if I have a bag of vegetable soil or potting soil like this, I like to throw even amounts of perlite, cocoa coir, and this into one big bucket and then mix it. I'll show you how. So typically I like to use a box like this just to mix up all my materials together. It's kind of like baking a cake. You just go through intuition and find out what works best for you. Maybe you want to add some worm tea in here. Maybe you want to add something else. Honestly, it's up to you. But for the three main components I mentioned, that's going to be doing most of the heavy lifting for your soil mix. So I like to take even amounts of cocoa coir, perlite, and compost. Just mix it together by hand, or even with a small shovel like this, until you get something kind of like this, you know? Yeah, it's just like baking a cake, you just gotta mix it. Okay, so we're gonna keep this really simple. I have a monoculture plot on the farm that I wanna grow a bunch of squash in, and we're just gonna get started with getting one of those seed trays and just boop, filling it up and starting it. Okay, so this is a 72 cell tray, and what I'm gonna do right now is just place the cell tray in here. This is just the way I do it, and I like to just fill it. You know, that way I don't waste anything oozing off the side. Was that a seed? Don't need that. Just like how you would make brownies or something. You just kind of just move it off to the side. Okay. And then this is what I like to do. Just take your water, just wet it a little bit. The way that you'll know that it's done fulfilling the maximum amount of water it can store is if you hear it dripping at the bottom. A little bit more compact. Let it drain a little bit. And I'm gonna poke holes into each cell and then just drop my squash seeds in there. And then in the course of about a week or so, because squash propagates really, really quick within a couple of days actually, each of these will be filled with a nice little squash seedling. Okay, so I like to get my seeds from Johnny Seeds. This is a commercially recognized brand. A lot of local small farmers, small scale farmers use Johnny Seeds, so I definitely recommend them. Johnny Seeds, if you see me out here, give me a brand sponsorship deal, please. All right.
Back. You can't do that.
All right. So what I'm gonna do is just take a regular pen, or it could be like honestly, a popsicle stick or whatever, and I'm just gonna create like a little dent. I'm sure there is definitely better tools, better things that you could be using for this, but just find and use whatever is around, and it doesn't really hurt me. Okay, so Tyra actually just tried eating some of these squash seeds, and she said that in an apocalyptic situation, she would rather eat the seeds than just actually plant it. So we're gonna prove her wrong and actually plant these things. So the instructions on each of these seeds, on how to plant them, with depth, even spacing, honestly, on when you actually take these out into the field, they're all in the packet. So the seedling packet is one of your best resources for each variety that you're getting and you're planting. But roughly, I just want to put a hole about half an inch into each of these cells. Just plant the seed as such, right? If you want to get technical, I believe that if you point the pointy end of the seed up, that is where the plant is actually going to intend on growing. So you can do that. Otherwise, just plant it and let nature do its thing. And we'll probably do like a time lapse, cause okay, okay. All right, so I'm trying to best explain this next part, but just like how you wouldn't want to be buried underneath the ground so much, like neither do the seeds. They want to have some opportunity to be out in the sun and receive that energy. So I wouldn't, make a hole too deep into each of these cells, and I would lightly cover the seed instead of just packing it on top with a bunch of material. Um, just give the seed every opportunity to grow and do its thing. Okay, so you can either just come by hand or whatever, just kind of lightly cover each of these seeds, or even with a pen. Yeah, I do love my job. It's amazing being able to make life out of literal sunlight. It's kind of crazy to me. Oh, so what I do is just give these guys a good water.
Tracy said she wants some. He loves you. That's his first time feeding you.
So there you have it. We have 72 squash seedlings started on the 21st of March. So we'll see when these actually germinate. We are in a heat house, so this is not fully enclosed. The sides have a little bit of airflow, but it is hot and humid enough in here, at least throughout the day, to get these seeds started. And then once they do, I'm going to take them over to the farm to start hardening outside. So I guess that's something that should be talked about. The post production of creating seedlings. Typically, these will take a couple weeks for them to get fully root bound. You can start testing your seedlings after about a week or so. Of course, read the packet. And then once you pull them out, you should see the root systems fully developed to the point where they're just like a nice encased ball. Um, you can plant, before that, but you run the risk of your seedlings becoming too delicate and not being able to survive outside. So just go based on your intuition and determine exactly when, how you want to plant them, even the tools that you would like to use to take your seedlings out of these trays safely. All right, guys, so this is the squash tray. So we have about, I want to say 80 to 90% success rate. You can tell that the squash seedlings are nearing their next stage of development by looking at their true leaves. So this is their true leaf right here. First, they have these two leaves to start off, and then they're going to be developing these. These are the more adult, mature versions. So that indicates that this is ready to remove out of these transplant trays. So what you want to do is water the whole tray. That's what I did already. And then you want to just squeeze the tray cell. And if everything works according to plan, you should be able to just remove the seedling with this fully developed root system, just like that. Very easy. When you do this, you stress out the plant. So you want to make it as easy as possible, whether it's actually physically removing it, whether it's wetting it, whether it's using the right type of medium to start your soil seedling starting mix, as well as taking your time and being patient to make sure that that root system is fully developed. That way, those roots have a nice time period to fully wrap onto the soil that you're planting these in. Right? So we're gonna wrap this up. I'm gonna take these to the farm and plant them so that they can continue their life cycle in the ground. So these squashes are going to go on a monoculture plot. I told you guys about that a little bit earlier. And what I intend to do is just have these just grow on top or underneath ground cover in mass on one of the spacings in between the fruit trees on our farm. It's just a test to see if we can start maximizing the space of the property to grow different alternative crops in a high volume. And I believe with butternut squash, we can get hundreds of pounds producing at least this end of the year towards spring and towards summer. We should have our first crops. All right, guys, that's it for today. That's how you start seedlings, or at least this is how we do it. And then over time, as we improve our processes, we'll be more than happy to share those things with you and different tools and techniques that you guys can try at home, or if you have a small farm yourself. If you found this video helpful at all, feel free to give it a like, comment, subscribe. You already know what to do. And if you have any feedback or even find any tools or even techniques that you think I should try out and make a video on, feel free to add that to the comment section below. And if you want to stay tuned to see exactly where this squash is going, the full timeline on how we take a product or a seed from point A to point B, feel free to check out the next video. We're going to be planting these on that monoculture plot underneath ground cover and just going through how we handle weed suppression and how we affect that crop over time. This is Growing with Dev. Catch you in the next video. Peace.